I'm ready.
Okay. Welcome to the Creatures of the Night, guys. This is a podcast. I'm Chris.
And I'm Wendy. Got that done and over with. So on your last podcast that you did, it was on not Tombstone necessarily, but it was about our experience at the Birdcage Theater. But I thought it was funny because just last night, I watched this new show that I'm in love with. And I wanted to tell you about anyways. And it's just so funny because he was just kind of in Tombstone. That's not what the show was about. It was about looking for treasure kind of outside of that. But it's just funny that I just kind of seen that stuff. It's kind of like when you did the episode on Turin. And I was like, Knights Templar, what's that? And then afterwards, everything I fucking watched had Knights Templar in it. I even had a podcast that talked about it. And I was like, everybody knows about it. I wish I would have seen these shows before her podcast so I didn't sound like such a dummy. But this new show, it's on Discovery, and it is Rob Riggle. He's an actor, comedian. He usually plays small parts. If you saw him, you'd be like, I've seen him before. But it's not like you would know any of his characters right off the bat. But he started this show that's so much like Josh Gates' show, but funny.
Oh.
I mean, Josh Gates is funny, very entertaining, but this is silly funny. So he goes out there and he gives you the facts, but then he spends a lot more time making jokes. So I think it's called Quest for Truth. That's the little billboard I'm looking at right now. So if people want to try that out, that's a new show on the Discovery Channel. It's fucking hilarious. And he really does, as much as he plays around, he really does actually give you the story and he investigates stuff. And so it's got that Josh Gates vibe. He's adventurous like that, but then he's really silly too.
Awesome. I love the silliness. I mean, that's one of the things that I miss the most about Destination Truth is because, there was a lot of witty side banter that Josh Gates didn't bring to Expedition Unknown. It seemed like he was going for more of an artsy appeal. And what is he on? Is he on Discovery? So maybe he felt like he had to amp it up, whereas before he was on Sci-Fi. So maybe he felt like he had more freedom with Sci-Fi to be kind of silly, to be more of his natural self. He still sneaks it in on Expedition Unknown, but it's just not as prominent as it was. And I always thought that it was about the duo. He had Ryder there and they would kind of bounce off of each other. She was this Hulk-like she-woman that, could outrace an ostrich, and she would wake up at 5 a.m. doing push-ups. Everyone else is still hungover and asleep. And then he would talk about unicorns to her. It was a cool show. I mean, I love Destination Truth. So I love Josh Gates, but I really like his personality. And I miss that because I try to watch Expedition Unknown and I'll watch it every now and then because I love Josh Gates. I'll fall asleep to that show. I'm sorry. I turned it on the other day. I was like, oh, Bermuda Triangle. This is going to be good. 3 minutes later.
I had to watch the Bermuda Triangle episode, the first one at least, twice. Because the first time I was just not paying attention. And I totally thought, oh, he's doing it. I'm going to find out something new that I don't know. And no, it was all the same stories I had heard before.
Yeah. I personally like the fact that there's a whole museum on the Bermuda Triangle and you can just interact with some of these things. I want to go see this museum. This looks cool. So it's still a very educational program and it's beautifully shot. Whoever is the cameraman is really taking his time to make sure that every molecule of water that sprays up into Josh Gates' face gets filmed in the slow motion it is very beautifully shot. That's what I'm trying to say. But it seems like they spent a lot more time on making sure that it was artsy rather than entertaining. And so I fall asleep. That doesn't mean I don't love him any less. I don't know. I have such a limited time for TV viewing, so it better be worth my time.
That is the truth. Yeah, you've got to pick and choose.
Yeah.
But Rob Riggle's show, you pay attention because he's even knocking out these one-liners when you don't expect it. It's not direct to the camera. He's doing a voiceover and then he's sliding in a joke and it's hilarious. He did an episode, he was in Florida and he was looking for pirate treasure. He's really into treasure, I guess. And he kept saying, so I Googled pirate booty. And he said, don't ever do that. It did not take you to where I thought.
That is so funny. Along those same lines, I just saw Steve DeShavi updated his picture today on Instagram, and he looks all buff and stuff. He's got all of his tattoos. He's flexing, right? He's trying to look mean. He's trying to look bad with his hair all grown out, and he's grown out his goatee and everything. He looks like a bad son of a gun, right? Well, right behind him, there's a picture that says, surrender the booty.
It's in his bedroom, probably. He's such a pimp and doesn't even care. Like, he's just so himself. This whole quarantine thing, he's been putting out more videos with, like, him and his friend, and the two of them are just constantly, like, everything they do is, like, kind of an argument. You know, like, they're putting on a performance, but these are just the way these two guys are. It's just funny.
I love Steve DeChavez. I like him. I like Amy Allen's tweets. Like, these people seem more real in their social media posts than they do on TV. Like, when you watch them on TV, it's like you can see that they're putting on an act. I mean, this is their job, right? It's like when I go to work, I put on the customer service Chris act, you know? I like them so much more seeing them on social media, and it's so reverse for me for like other TV stars. I'm not going to name any names, but there are some paranormal people that I watch their shows and then I see them on social media and I'm like, shut up. God, you're so rich. You're so wealthy. Ugh. You know, they just act all prim and proper on social media. And I'm like, come on. Show me the real you. Show me the Steve DeChavez you. Come on.
I know. They don't seem very down to earth.
Yeah, right.
If you want us to believe you that the experiences you're having and the evidence that you're witnessing is true, then I feel like you have to get onto some kind of personal level with these people. And you don't get that in their social media. It seems still very, this is all that I want to show you. They don't open up to the public, which, I mean, whatever. It's their own business. Right. They don't know us. So
no,
I guess
get
that's
that.
fine. It's just, it makes those people, Steve DeChavez and Amy Allen, like, so much more fun to watch their shows because you feel like they really enjoy what they're doing and they're really into it and they must believe it if they're doing it.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I like them just so much more because they seem so much more personable, especially on their social media. And social media, that's a hard one to manage. When you can come on there and really shine in a way that people feel like they can connect with you, I mean, you're golden, man. And they do it with ease. And it's because it's just who they are. It's not who like these other people are. And that's why I'm like, if I'd see you, I wouldn't run and ask you for your autograph or your picture because you just kind of seem like you're,
They definitely probably wouldn't give it to you either.
Exactly.
With that said, I would say that there's a lot of other people we see on social media that we do enjoy just as much as them that seem like genuine people, but we don't have to like give you a laundry list of that. It's not like they're the only two legit people that are cool is what I'm trying to get at. Is it right. There are still others, but there's like a handful of what seems like assholes basically.
Yeah, it's easy to pick out like people like Steve DeChavez because he was right here. He went right along with what you were saying.
Yeah.
Again, he just posts things that are like he's flexing or he's laying in bed and he just
which I always think is totally creepy. Just like Nick's in the bathtub pictures. It's like, stop it. Who's taking that picture?
It is so funny. Every time I see a picture of Nick in a bathtub, I have to send it to Wendy right away because it's like, here's that creepy picture again. Making its rounds for you and your visual entertainment.
It's quite amusing, though. So maybe that's what he was going for.
It worked.
Well, that's all the new stuff I got for you. You want to get into a story then?
Yes. And by the way, I wrote that show down.
You should try it out. Watch at least one episode, see if you like it, because I think you might. It's funny.
Yeah, for the recommendation.
So my story this week came as a recommendation from none other than my oldest child.
Out of the blue?
Out of the blue, he sends me a link. I think I'm in the house, but whatever. He sends a link on my phone and he says, I think he even texted it. I don't think he said it to me. He said, you should do a story on this. And I was like, okay, what is this? So I asked him to tell me the story. And he goes, you didn't read the link? And I'm like, you can talk to me. We can do that.
Right.
We're in the same room. Would you like to have a conversation? So he tells me what he knows of it. And right away, I'm like, people get the wrong idea of what we do stories on, apparently, because nothing really sounded like necessarily paranormal to me. But he gave me like the lightest version of it. So I checked out a podcast on it. My Not Alone podcast, by the way, the one that I've recommended before. I also found another podcast that did this story, and I ended up saving them into my library as well because they just sounded like a good, funny group together. They're called All Rather Mysterious. Oh. And they're like 3 British people. They sound British at least.
Oh.
So, of course, I was like, I'm loving these accents, everyone. This is great. So they did the story on it. And then after that, I was like, yep, I am in love with this. Then I thanked my son for it later. And he goes, "Oh, you're really doing that story?" I was like, "Yes, you fucking told me to."
He's like, I was just kidding.
I was just joking. That story's dog shit.
Who would do that story? Come on, jeez.
God, you fell for it, Mom.
It's funny.
All right, so let's get into it. In June 1947, the Dutch freighter SS Ourang Medan was traveling along the Straits of Malacca when the ship suddenly sent out a chilling distress signal, which read, "All officers, including the captain, are dead. Lying in chart room and bridge, possibly whole crew dead." This first message was followed by a series of unreadable Morse code sequences until finally a last ominous transmission came through, which simply stated, "I die." The Ourang Medan's grim SOS was picked up by British and Dutch listening posts around Sumatra and Malaysia, who worked together to determine where the signal was coming from and alerted nearby ships. The American merchant ship, the Silver Star, was first to reach the Ourang Medan. They waved and they shouted at the vessel to check for signs of life aboard deck, but there was no answer, only eerie silence. The crew decided to send out a rescue team to board the ship and to look for survivors. But what they found was a blood-curdling nightmare. The deck of the ship was just littered with corpses. Worse than that, all of their eyes were widely open and their faces were twisted in expression of anguish and horror. Their arms were raised as if to defend themselves or to grasp at some unseen assailant. Even the ship's dog was found dead with a frozen snarl on its face. Then they go inside and they find the captain, his officers, all laying dead on the bridge, the wheelhouse, and the chart room floors. And then there was the communications officer still at his post, as dead as the rest, with his fingertip resting on the telegraph machine. All the corpses, according to reports, bore the same terrified, wide-eyed expression as the crew on the deck above. Below deck, search party members found even more corpses in the boiler room. Disturbing as the scene was, much like the ones before that, the American crew was even more creeped out by the unusual extreme chill they felt while at the lowest point of the hold, even though the temperature outside was 110 degrees. While the search team could see clear evidence that the crew of the Ourang Medan suffered profoundly at the moment of their deaths, they still could not find any evidence of injury or foul play on these swiftly decaying bodies. Nor could they see any damage on the ship itself. After seeing the chilling devastation on board, the Silver Star decided not to linger in the area.
Yeah.
We gotta nope out of this.
No kidding. This sounds so much like an X-File.
It's so funny that you say that. As I was doing the story and going to different pages, something popped up where it was something X-File and this Ourang Medan. And I was like, no fucking way. X-Files hasn't done this story, have they? Because Chris is totally going to fucking know it then. You don't know this story, do you?
It sounds like Dead Calm. It's an X-Files episode. As you're going into it, I'm like, was that a real story? I thought it was just an X-File.
I thought that they base a lot of their stories on real events, but then they tweak it, So I Googled it, Ourang Medan X-Files. Nothing came up, but this one website, but the website said they had not done it before. And they listed some other things that have happened in history that X-Files apparently haven't covered either. That it was too fucked up for them to cover. But
that's crazy though. As soon as you started on, I was like, this is an X-File. Is this for real? I'm sitting here on the edge of my seat. I cannot believe this was a real thing. So I don't know. That's wild. If this was a real thing, I've got time. I'm going to go back through all of my X-Files and just be like, okay, what else? What else is real?
Well, I'll go on with the story and then you just tell me, if it sounds like it's hitting all the points, then you just tell me, oh yeah, this was totally an X-Files episode, because it was confusing to me whether it was or wasn't. I just found this one website that said, no, it wasn't. And I was like, whew, I'm good. I can keep going. But so the Silver Star decides that they can't stick around, but they do feel that it's their duty to at least tow the Ourang Medan back to port. But while connecting a tow line to the ship, the crew of the Silver Star began to see a thick cloud of smoke rising from the lower decks. This happened in the show? You made a face.
Go ahead.
Okay. So the crew barely had time to sever the tow line and move to safety before the Ourang Medan exploded. The blast was apparently so big that the ship lifted herself from the water for a moment and then swiftly sank, taking with it all the answers to this mystery to the bottom of the sea. So on the X-Files, you know what happened?
No, that's not what happened. Nope.
An alien came and sucked it up and took it away?
No, it was like a virus. They go to investigate the ship and they catch the virus and then they end up like almost dying. It's a very epic episode and that's why I was like tuned into it right away. But nope, that is not what happened. And maybe that's why when you were like searching this up on the internet, they're like, nope. It might sound like it, but it isn't it.
I guess that's kind of what it was saying, yeah. So, well, that's good. But that's really the end of the story of the Ourang Medan. That's all that happened.
That's crazy, though.
So it's kind of like, what happened? How did these people die? Why did it fucking explode? Well, there are many theories, and we're going to go over them.
So did they dive down into the water and pull those bodies up so that they could like investigate what happened to them, like research them?
Nope. There's no record of that. There's no record of people diving and finding the shipwreck. It's just gone. Boom.
Wow.
The end.
It's in the walls of a castle now, right?
Atlantis.
That is fucking crazy. Nobody went down to even look for it, or they did look and it's just gone.
There was no records that I found of people diving to look for it. You know, just this one ship witnessed this whole thing. And it was just a merchant ship, and it just went back to port and kind of started spreading the story like, you won't believe what fucking happened today. Could not believe it. It's insane.
It's like Old Boy from Angie Cooney Lake all over again, right?
Right. Yes, it does have tones of that. I have been in a weird place with looking for my podcast stories. So you guys... I don't know when we're ever going to get a traditional ghost story again, because I keep finding these strange ass stories and I love them. So nice. This might turn into more of an X-Files situation on this show.
Just fine for me. I love it.
So theory number 1 is that it was a government cover-up.
Of course. X-Files. Yes.
But see, many researchers have attempted to explore this mystery. However, they immediately hit a dead end when they can't even find proof that the Ourang Medan existed. Several searches for official registration of the ship or even an accident investigation report have proved unsuccessful.
Cover up.
You may know this already, seeing that you kind of live by the seaside, but every ship has to register, like you register your car in your state. You have to register your shipping vessel with one of these major registration companies around the world, like the Lloyd's Shipping Register, or the Dutch Shipping Records in Amsterdam, or the Maritime Authorities of Singapore, one of these major companies. And the Ourang Medan fails to show up on any of those lists. So... was the story completely fake, or was there some reason that they would want to keep this ship and its fatal accident a secret?
Yes. And no, I didn't. I mean, I could see them wanting you to register your boat. Sure. But I don't have a boat, so I haven't had that problem, yet.
Well, you work in moving freight around with these big shippers, so I didn't know if you knew that already or not. I did not know that there was this whole thing, and it's not necessarily like you register it with your country per se. The sea is like open waters, and they go by like kind of different rules. And I might be wrong about that. That's just how I interpreted it, what they were saying.
Okay.
So some researchers have speculated that if the Ourang Medan was a genuine ship, that it likely hailed from Sumatra, which at the time was a colony of the Netherlands in what was referred to as the Dutch East Indies. Ourang is Indonesian for man, and Medan, if I'm saying that right, is the biggest city on the island of Sumatra, which would designate this mystery freighter the man from Medan. Professor Theodor Seesdorfer. He is from Essen, Germany, if I'm saying that right. he has pursued the case for the better part of 50 years. And he found a 32-page German booklet written in 1954 by Otto Mielke, entitled some German words that I'm not going to try to say, that translates in English to Death Ship of the South Sea.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So was it like fiction or nonfiction?
No, apparently it's like a pamphlet. But it has this dramatic title for some reason. It's a booklet that Otto wrote, and he details a lot about the Ourang Medan. He notes its route, its cargo, its tonnage, its engine power, and even allegedly the captain's name. Otto even throws out the idea that the Ourang Medan was transporting within the number 4 hold exceedingly lethal and highly illegal substances of potassium cyanide and nitroglycerin.
Okay. Did Otto mysteriously disappear?
No, apparently these are legit people that I think these days, they're probably not around anymore. But this was documented evidence of the existence of this ship and that it wasn't fictitious. But it was something that was written years after the event. So did he make it all up? But people speculate that he must have known somebody that, was a part of the company that owned the ship, or that he knew somebody from the Silver Star that was able to give him like more details for him to write this all up.
But he lived the rest of his years in peace. Like he just didn't like...
No, nobody took him out.
Okay. All right. So then that X is kind of like the cover-up story, because if you're going to go out of your way to, print pamphlets on some sort of strange, mysterious thing, I mean, like, if it is a cover-up, you're getting axed pretty quick. You're gone.
I don't know, though, because there's a lot of supporters of this theory, and they believe that the Ourang Medan was part of a transnational government cover-up involving the Netherlands, Japan, Germany, China, the United States, and possibly others. They believe that the ship was deliberately erased from all maritime records because it was being used to smuggle secret cargo of lethal nerve gas from or to Japan.
Agent Orange?
Pretty much. They go on to say that they think the Ourang Medan's voyage is linked to the Army Unit 731, which was founded in 1932 by Japanese scientists. This is my best effort, guys. Shiro Ashide.
Oh, these are two different scientists?
No, that's his name. I'll clip it to where it say it faster.
No, I like the explanation. That's perfect.
So these monsters, this Unit 731, I don't know. Have you ever heard of them before?
Nope.
I hadn't before this either. They're pretty fucking horrible. They did all kinds of horrible experiments, but their big thing was they were way into manufacturing biological weapons. They started this during World War II as a way to kind of end it. Okay. The locals knew them by the name Den of Cannibals, if that gives you a little idea of how terrible they were. I could also tell you some of the horrible things that they did. It is on my paper if you're not too squeamish.
Well, I love a cannibal story.
Well, I don't think they were necessarily eating people up, but they just fucking hacked at them as much as they wanted to and didn't treat them like real humans. So thousands of men and women, mostly Chinese communist prisoners, as well as children and elderly farmers, they were infected with diseases such as cholera and the plague. Then they would remove their organs to examine them before they would died. They wouldn't kill them, and they wouldn't give them any anesthetic either. Why waste it,
Is this where Lala Rhea is from? I mean, did she get this from them? Because this sounds like her kind of technique. I mean, honestly, any kind of human trials are fucked up. Right. And it sounds like that's what this is leading towards. So, yeah, okay, I see where the conspiracy kind of comes back into play.
Because it was happening around this time, too. This 1947. So the war ended in 1945, but they were still prosecuting criminals of war until 1949. Maybe I'm a little off by that. But within this time frame, they were still doing this. And they brought Nazi scientists to the United States and took their research and everything. So this was the same thing. These people were trying to see how these kind of plagues affected the body. They also would amputate limbs and reattach them to the other side of the body They would also crush or freeze or cut off the circulation of parts of the body so that they can study the process of gangrene. And then when they were done with these prisoners, their bodies were all used up and they couldn't do any more to them. They typically would just shoot them, or they'd kill them with a lethal injection, or they'd just bury them alive. You know, whatever the day called for, I guess.
Can I just add one thing?
Yeah.
The X-Files episode, it was a plague. That's why, like, when you said that, like, there was this black cloud that came through, like, that's what I saw. But when you said it, like, blew up and disappeared, I was like, oh, no, it was a plague. So I'm going with plague. My final answer.
I've got a lot of theories to go through. Hear me out. So with this Unit 731, all of their Chinese, Mongolian, Korean, Russian prisoners, anybody they really had there, never survived confinement. And then, like I said, it's factual evidence that General Douglas MacArthur covertly granted immunity to these scientists in exchange for providing the U.S. with their biological warfare research, regardless of their unspeakable acts that they committed. They were like, what did you find out? That was terrible what you did, by the way. But what you actually learned from that? Can we have that? And I'm sure the Japanese scientists were like, bitch, you ain't getting nothing from me if you're just going to put me in prison. They're like, no, it's okay. Just don't tell anybody it's okay. But, like, could we know a little bit about this? However, the Geneva Protocol from 1925 prohibited the use of all chemical and biological weapons in war. This agreement between the United States and Unit 731 was highly illegal. So, many speculate that perhaps the United States government, or another world power if it wasn't them, decided to use the slow and inconspicuous vessel like this Dutch freighter to transport such cargo for reasons of both safety and concealment. Because the idea of putting this stuff on a plane and it possibly crashing somewhere, that was a worse idea than just putting it on a ship, and who cares if it hurts that ship, you know?
Yeah, okay.
This theory also provides an explanation for their grisly death, because a gas leak would have had certainly led to immediate death on everybody on board. And I think it would explain their faces too, because they would have been choking like on the gases, you know?
Oh, God.
Apparently, if seawater or any kind of water could have got on these types of gases that they were talking about, it could have caused the reaction and released the gas throughout the ship, killing everyone instantly. And then if more water got in there and mixed with the nitroglycerate, it could have caused the explosion.
The freezing.
Later on. The explosion. And they made a comment that the body seemed to be decaying pretty quickly. It took them like 8 hours to get to the ship or somewhere around there. But still, that's not enough time for them necessarily to start decaying, you know?
Yeah, right.
So, if this theory is just too much for you, this is too horrible to imagine that the United States or some other country would make a deal with the fucking devil to get this information, then let's move on to theory number 2.
Oh, that was just the first one?
That was just the first one. So the next one is pretty simple. It could have just been carbon monoxide poisoning. An American author, actually the inventor of the term Bermuda Triangle, his name is Vincent Gaddis, if I'm saying that right. He speculated that burning fuel from a malfunctioning boiler system could have produced carbon monoxide fumes that poisoned the crew. When breathed in, carbon monoxide enters the bloodstream and prevents red blood cells from carrying oxygen throughout the body. At high levels, carbon monoxide can cause dizziness, vomiting, seizures, loss of consciousness, and even death. The trouble with this theory is that the Ourang Medan is not a completely enclosed space.
Thank you. I was just about to say, this isn't a fucking submarine.
No, the fumes could have simply escaped into the atmosphere, and the lives of the crew, especially the ones on the upper deck of the ship, would have been spared. So maybe the guys in the boiler room would have got it, but as they choked, they could have just went up for air.
Right.
However, there is another natural gas that could have caused the poisoning. That would be the methane gas that is naturally on the seabed floor and apparently has been known to just erupt at random times. Does this ever happen to the ships that you work with? Or when you did that kind of shipping? None of them just blew up by the methane gas?
No, thank God, because that would have been a fucking nightmare to have to deal with that shit. But going to the methane gas coming up. I mean, this is a theory that comes up on a lot of different topics. But there is also a location, I think, in Japan where they see lights come out of the water. And every year, everyone goes around this area just so that they can see all of these lights. And they figured out that it's just methane gas coming up from the bottom of the seabed or whatever. But it was such a phenomenon for so many years and they couldn't explain it. And they would just go and sit out and watch, those lights. And I can't remember the name of the place, but you nodded. So like you understood what I was talking about.
Well, I've read about the Devil's Triangle, and that's off of Asia somewhere, Japan or whatever.
Yeah.
There's also volcanoes underneath.
Yeah.
But people for a long time were just like, it's cursed. It's just like the Bermuda Triangle. Don't go through there. And then people are like, no, it's just the fucking volcanoes underneath the ground. It's like, I mean, it's still not great, but.
Right. Not a curse.
Yeah, it's not a curse. It's just Mother Earth, But this whole methane gas and even the carbon monoxide poisoning, that doesn't explain the explosion that the Silver Star saw hours later. The carbon monoxide should have worn off. The methane gas had it attack twice. As soon as it knew somebody was on the ship, it's like, gotta get rid of the evidence. I don't think it works that way.
That's some smart methane gas.
I know. So then there's a theory number 3. And it was that it was pirates. There are theories claiming that pirates invaded the Ourang Medan and killed everyone on board.
Are these like vampire pirates?
Maybe. So this doesn't fit with the description that there was no visible wounds on the victims. However, supporters of this theory say the crew of the Silver Star, they weren't there that long. They didn't examine each body, so they maybe just missed the fact that they have injuries. But I mean, if you slaughter a whole crew, I'm sure you're going to see some blood somewhere.
Telling you, they were frightening as fuck, and they just boarded that ship and they were just like, like they just died instantly. And that's why they all have that contorted face.
Yeah,
because they were just frightened to death.
The only reason people bring up this theory is because the Straits of Malacca have a long history of piracy. Dating back to like the 14th century, it geographically is a sweet spot for them because it's very narrow and it's dotted with inlets, so they can surprise attack. Even to this day, I think piracy is pretty bad in that area. And it's a huge trade route for people going from China to Europe. But again, doesn't explain the explosion, and it doesn't make sense how they could kill an entire crew like that and nobody noticed like blood or something like that.
I mean, if there was a ship of pirates that were doing this kind of work, you would think that there would be more reports of it, not just this one occurrence, right? I mean, because if you're a whole ship of pirates that were that dastardly, wouldn't you keep that shit up? You wouldn't be like, that was our masterpiece.
Yeah, you'd be the king of the fucking sea. They would have taken over. So trash that theory. It doesn't make any sense to us. The next one might not either. But how about ghost pirates? Or just ghosts. It is actually a legitimate theory that people throw out there, and it's because of that one detail that seems insignificant, but it's constantly repeated, that when the crew of the Silver Star went down into the lowest point of the hole, that they felt that extreme chill, even though it was hot outside.
Ooh, okay.
So with the unexplainable drop in temperature, plus the frightening expressions on the crew's face, then the creeping setting of the unforgiving sea, sure, why not? It must have been ghosts.
Okay.
To be honest, there's not a whole lot of supporters of this theory, though there were some, so of course I had to mention it,
2 people.
You and me. No. So after we blame it on government conspiracy and natural causes, we evaluated those, and then we tried to blame it on ghosts. Who else is left? It's those fucking aliens, of course. Any unexplained event, it's got to be them, right?
Well, I was wrong because I was going to say, obviously, Hail Hydra. So go on with your theory.
So this is not a creative theory at all, but it actually is a very popular one, and there's entire books dedicated to it. These books hypothesize that the crew of the Ourang Medan may have been attacked by extraterrestrials for some reason that's simply unknown. We don't know why they got hostile. They just came down and went fucking crazy, I guess.
I mean, but seriously, like with most alien encounters, like why are they doing the things that they're doing anyways?
To take over the planet. That's always the reason. This was just one ship, though. What good was that going to do them? But what if they were the type that came down and just sucked out your soul and they were studying your soul?
Wow, that's deep. Are you sure that's aliens? That's like some other kind of that's like an angelic being. They just come down in their whatever that is that they're floating around in, and they just suck out your souls. Wow, that's Marvel. And you laughed at my hypothesis about Hell Hydra?
The Hell Hydra is no different than that unit from Japan,
right.
Really. I guess
That's
it's just because of its geographical location of where the Straits of Malacca are, it made more sense to blame it on them than European forces.
Yeah. Wow. Aliens. And you said there's books on this. Was this a Whitley Strieber? Because I've got him on my download. Oh, shit. Really? I missed this one?
You know what? I had the name of the authors and I took it out because, they were just adding it to their book. It's a mystery, just like Angie Cooney Lake. They threw it in because there's no answer, in my opinion, though I really think that was aliens. But this one I'm not so sure, except for the fact that the CIA has released letters discussing the Ourang Medan. And if they're involved, yeah, you can pretty much be confident there might be aliens involved, right?
But I need to see these letters. Are they like, stop hassling us about this damn ship? Is that the letter? Oh, you got it?
Got it? And I'm going to email it to you. This is apparently the copy of it.
You know I'm a slow reader.
No, you don't have to read it now, but the CIA released this letter. That's from 1959, but they released it in May of 2003. They made it public record. Reading it is quite fun. It says within it that the Ourang Medan holds the key to many of the sea's mysteries, including that of sightings of huge fiery spears that come from the sky and descend into the sea. So that's kind of like those methane gas release things, but they don't seem to be hip to that idea for some reason. This letter was written by C.H. Mark Jr. of Scottsdale, Arizona, because these Arizonans love their fucking aliens.
Yeah, they're also close to New Mexico.
Right. But this whole area out in the desert.
Aw.
Mark first asked the recipient of the letter if they believe the story of the Ourang Medan deals with something from the unknown. That's actually in the letter. That's how he phrased it. Then Mark retells the story of the Ourang Medan and its sinking. The person to whom Mark wrote the letter to remains redacted by the CIA. But the letter also references an earlier letter that he wrote in May of 1958. And that letter became public knowledge in May of 2002, so before this other one. And that one, they didn't have it redacted. That letter was sent to Mr. Dulles, who is the director of the CIA. And it was responded to by the assistant to the director. So you can assume that this letter, though who it was sent to was redacted, it was sent to the CIA. Because he said, I wrote you last year. You remember that? Let's talk about that again.
Sure. Okay. You know what's funny? Just out of the blue here, my uncle sent me a text and he says, if you knew the sci-fi that's coming out with people on a boat and they catch fish and then some woman wants to research, but they all get infected, would you let me know what that is, please? And it's just so funny because you're talking about a boat and I'm like, it's a plague, it's a plague.
Yeah, that's so funny. That just came through now?
Yeah.
How weird.
I have no idea what he's talking about.
So, okay, you can say C.H. Mark, he's a nut job from Arizona into aliens, right? And he keeps writing the CIA and they're ignoring him. Who knows? Because there's no response that's necessarily documented or released by them. So maybe they weren't that heavily involved. Maybe he was the only one running with this idea. However, there is a documented report from the Proceedings of the Merchant Marine Council, which was published by the United States Coast Guard. And it provides testimony by witnesses of the incident. So this doesn't make it necessarily that it was aliens. It does document that there was some kind of witness to it so that it was a real event, possibly, if you believe this document. And it does describe in the testimony that the person said that their faces were frozen and turned upward to the sun, staring as if in fear. The mouths were gaping open and the eyes staring. So, I mean, they were looking up, is all it really says.
But even the ones that were underneath, like even the ones that were in the vessel, like down in it?
That's the way they described all the corpses. as if they were the same, all with the hands kind of up, shielding their face or outstretched and everywhere. It wasn't just on the deck. So again, that doesn't really make sense for necessarily aliens as well.
That's weird. But again, it doesn't really make sense for it to be a gas, or something that would cause them to just lay down and die if they're clearly looking like they're shielding themselves from something too.
Yes, yeah. All of them making the same expression, that's quite odd.
Yeah.
But if it's biological warfare that we don't know because they don't use it, it's experimental, maybe we don't know the effects of it. But I don't know. So, and also with the alien theory, does not explain the explosion at the end. When the other ship showed up, why the fuck did it just spontaneously combust? So it's almost like you have to throw that one out too.
Cover up again. Like if someone went in there with some biological weapon in their hands and they are all in suits, right? I don't know, white from head to toe, face mask, just, something that keeps them from getting whatever it is that they're going to spray on these people. Well, they board their vessel. And who knows, maybe they're tall. Maybe there's a bright light behind them too. I'm just painting a picture. They get on the vessel, right? These people think that they're seeing Jesus, approaching. And they're like, oh my God, what is it? And then all of a sudden they get sprayed in the face by like a pesticide. They don't know what the hell's happening. They're like, stop it. Trying to like quit that from happening. But all of a sudden, because it's some terrible chemical, they seize, they lock up in that exact expression. They're just going around hosing all these people with this. And, you go downstairs, I don't know, they're not seeing any lights because they're down there, but they are getting sprayed in the face with something. I guess it just depends. So this other boat rolls up, sees them there. This is just happens to be timing because the government finally gets wind. Oh, yeah, that test didn't go as well as we had planned. Everyone died. We need to go ahead and cover that shit up. They blow it sky high, right? Well, or ocean deep.
Yeah. Well, so even with aliens, you could say government cover up. They didn't want the proof of aliens. So maybe the Silver Star was in on it and they blew the fucking stuff up. So that they wouldn't have proof. But also back to the nerve gas thing. What if somebody came onto the ship and took the supplies out of there and blew it up just because, it went bad? Maybe they were going to rat it out. They found out what was going on. Maybe they had one spy on the ship. And then he let them know, do with the Morse code. They're on to us. They know what we're doing. And then they sent in the people and took care of them.
Yeah, right.
So, another theory, and this is one I made up, so I didn't necessarily find any supporters of this. Of course, I feel like it's an obvious answer. Not really. There's lots of holes with this theory, but I had to throw out there. I mean, it could be sea monsters, right?
Of course. Yes. Honestly, to be fair, in the very, very beginning, I was like, that's where she's going with the story. It has to be. I'm thinking of the water. Was it dark, muddy water? Because you probably couldn't see down there.
True. The ocean is vast. And unless you're in the Caribbean or something, you can't see that far down, right?
Yeah.
And it was the description of the crew's faces that I could not stop thinking about the idea of the basilisk. So a basilisk is mostly described as more of a land creature. But in European legends, a basilisk is a reptile, reputed to be like the Serpent King, and it could cause death with a single glare. So they were all petrified, and all that had to do was look at them. And they're not always described as ginormous either. They're actually described as pretty small. But again, they're also described as on land.
Yes, they have them in World of Warcraft. They are on land.
They have them on Harry Potter.
I forgot about that. But it's also weird to think that there's another legendary creature out there that was pulling some Medusa-style shit. You look at me the wrong way and you're a stone. That's all.
Right? So the earliest account of a basilisk comes from the Pliny the Elder Natural History. I don't know if I'm saying that first word right. It was written in 79 CE, and they described the creature as a monstrous cow-like being in which all who behold its eyes fall dead upon the spot.
Wow. 79 CE. That really takes me back.
And this was supposed to be a list of actual animals, but a lot of them are nobody went out and actually looked for these animals. They were just
why would you?
I just heard somebody talking about this. Yeah. So griffins are in there. All kinds of mythical beasts kind of come from these types of recordings where they were just taking other people's stories and being like, they said they saw it.
This is, it's cool as hell. I'm sitting inside my cave. Y'all go and find them. Go find them all day long.
I gotta sit here and write this shit out. I can't actually go and explore. I'm not Josh Gates. Jesus. I mean, y'all know who Jesus is now, right? It's CE.
Right.
So they were also said to exude fumes, which were so harmful and infested with pestilence that their breath alone could wilt vegetation and even disintegrate stone. So get this. Like I said, they're more described as a land creature. But on September 18th, 1876, the Straits Time Overland Journal ran an editorial reporting an unusual sea creature which had been seen by a captain and his shipload of passengers 1 week earlier. The monster was seen in the Malachi Straits, our Straits of Malachi, and was logged in Captain John W. Webster's logbook. He was the captain of the SS Nestor. He described the creature as having a body which was quite 50 feet broad and its total length over 200 feet. Its head was about 12 feet broad and appeared about 6 feet above the water. It had a long dragon-like tail with black and white scales.
It's very detailed.
I know, like he really saw this shit. Because he probably did. This monster continued its course alongside the ship, taking no note to either the ship or its occupants, who were entertained by its presence for about half an hour.
Yeah, until he opened up his mouth and breathed on them, and then he looked at some of them, right? Because if everything was all fun and games, and yeah, now they're like, rah, they're dying.
So almost 9 years later, on October 4th, 1885, a creature resembling the monster witnessed by the Nestor was seen off the north coast of South Africa. Several witnesses of the creature reported it as having yellow skin, black stripes, and being around 90 feet long. Only this time they actually witnessed that it had fins that occasionally would break the surface of the water and then slap against it as they resubmerged. So in 1965, Belgian-French scientist, explorer, researcher, writer, and father of cryptozoology, Bernard, I'm going to fuck up his last name, Heuvelmans.
I thought you were telling me his last name.
No, I should just leave it at that.
I didn't even know there was a father of cryptozoology. This is all news to me.
Apparently, this is him.
This is him.
He categorized this large unknown, he said tadpole-like creature under the name yellow belly. I guess he wasn't going off of the first description where it's black and white, whatever. And he believed it to be either an unknown type of shark. That's rather fucking big for a shark. I think. I don't know. How big is Jaws?
The last time I heard, sharks aren't cryptids, so.
He said it's a type of shark or possibly an amphibian.
Okay.
The most famous yellow belly sighting would take place on December 12, 1964 in Stonehaven Bay near Hook Island in Queensland. While wrecked on the Great Barrier Reef, Robert LeSuric, I think, and his family, as well as a family friend, spent 3 months on Hook Island. As they were crossing the bay one day, Robert's wife spotted a huge tadpole-like creature resting on the sandy bottom that was reported to measure nearly 80 feet long.
Damn.
Originally thought to be dead due to this large wound that they thought it was a wound on its side, but it surprised them because eventually it opened its eyes and looked at them as they were staring at it.
What y'all looking at my wound for?
Mind your own business.
That's my wound. That's funny.
It opened its mouth and then proceeded to come towards them in their small motorboat. The creature appeared to be covered in smooth, dark skin with brown stripes wrapped around its body. No fins were visible this time around, and they didn't seem to see any teeth either. They said its eyes were positioned on top of its head, I guess like a frog, and the pupils were slanted, also like a frog.
Like Kermit the Frog.
Yeah. Fearing that the creature would suddenly become aggressive. I mean, it's 80 feet long and it's coming at you. It's already being aggressive.
Steamship. Yeah, no kidding.
The family made their way out of the bay, and as they proceeded towards the shore, the large creature exited the bay as well and returned to the open ocean, never to be seen again.
Wow.
Like I said before, the sea monster theory, it's got a lot of holes in it. It doesn't explain the explosion at the end that the Silver Star witnessed. It doesn't explain how the fuck the sea monster would have killed people that were inside the boat.
Yeah. Also, how does this guy keep changing colors and stripes and like losing teeth? Like, what is happening to this thing? Over the years, he's really fallen apart.
I would assume that it is some kind of sea creature. Look, the sea, like, it's barely been explored.
Oh, yeah.
So
I know.
I do believe that there are things in the deep, deep sea that come up every once in a while that we've never documented exactly what they are. These could be different species or different types of things, or they could all be the same one that just have different patterns to them, like cats.
Cute. I like that. Cats are sweet. Now, I completely agree with you as far as the ocean being explored completely. There was something I saw, I don't know, maybe a month ago that was really impressive. And it was some coast. Someone was taking pictures of this black, dark blob that had just appeared in the ocean. And it was just moving from one end to another end, but it was mysterious and they didn't know what the hell it was. And so they just get in the ocean to get a closer look. And it's like thousands upon thousands of fish. And they are all moving in sync with each other. And they keep forming this blob. Like you've seen little Finding Nemo, right? And there's those silverfish. And, then it's like pointing and all this other shit. Well, this was this sort of thing, but they were all like black, shiny fish. So from afar, it looked like an oil spill in the ocean. But when they got down in, it's just thousands of these tiny little fish. You know, creatures of the ocean, they're beautiful. They're things that we don't know everything about. And I'm a 100% believer in cryptids. Not so fond of sharks being cryptids, but you know, you want to talk Loch Ness Monster kind of thing. I'm on board. I like that idea. I do say that, but I also am with you. I don't see how that connects to the rest of the story.
No. Other than thinking that this sea creature has some kind of bacillate gene in it that it could have petrified these people, then also still how could it have gotten through the ship and got everybody all the way down into the boiler room if it's 90 feet long or something?
Oh, I got it. Ghost basilisk. There you go.
That would work.
That's it. And he's got thumbs, so he lights a match.
So, of course, there is a final theory, and that is that it's completely fucking fake. That this story's not true at all. The story's first appearance was in a series of 3 articles in a Dutch-Indonesian newspaper in 1948. It appeared on February 3rd, 28th, and March 13th. And at the end of its publication, the Dutch newspaper concluded with a disclaimer that read, "This is the last part of our story about the mystery of the Ourang Medan. We must repeat that we don't have any other data on this mystery of the sea, nor can we answer the many unanswered questions in the story. It may seem obvious that this is a thrilling romance of the sea. On the other hand, the author, Silvio Surley, assures us of the authenticity of the story." So they publish it, and then they're like, could be fucking fake, but blame it on Silvio if we're telling a lie. He's the one that told us.
Silvio!
Also, just to make matters worse for this story, there were no public records of the ship's log of the Silver Star that they made any kind of rescue attempt to another ship. And on top of that as well, there was a British researcher who found a story very similar to the Ourang Medan in 2 British newspapers from 1940, 7 years before this apparently happened. And they both quoted the Associated Press as the source of the story.
Okay.
And then you will also see varying accounts of it over the years. The date may change, the location might adjust, the names of the ships might change, and the circumstances of the incident, of course, all leading you to think this is like some extreme creepypasta from the 1940s.
Okay.
But if it's fake news, why did the U.S. Coast Guard investigate the incident in 1954? And that's documented. Where did this booklet come from that's got all these details of the ship's existence? And then there are the CIA involvement, possibly. Why did they release those letters if they didn't just say, this dude from Arizona is completely crazy? You know, I don't know why he's writing this. By the way, I don't think I ever properly said it. That guy from Arizona, he is also a CIA agent. He wasn't just like a unknown.
Random dude. Okay.
Yeah, he was one of their agents writing to the director about it. But he wasn't instructed to look into it, so he kind of did it on his own, but he was a CIA agent. So, I mean, with all this detailed information from these credible sources, how is this just an urban myth? I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I can't go full in on Angie Cooney Lake and not go full in on this one. I mean, you know, all in is what I meant to say, but it's definitely got those same tones because you've got a complete mystery. Only this time you've got the government's involvement. You've got serious allegations, too, from a time when shit was getting real. There were some serious things going on, including all kinds of human testing that was not cool, but it was happening. So it does seem like very suspicious. There is something that probably really did go down that could have been a government cover-up. And it's in their better interest to let this go to the conspiracy theories instead of actually answering anything with a legit, you know, answer that would lead you to think one way or another. If a CIA agent answers a letter and gives any kind of, you know, leans hard to any way, then a conspiracy theorist is going to go bananas with that shit. So either they're going to say, well, it's all fake because you gave me hard evidence this time, or allegedly you gave me facts, or they're going to say, what are you really covering up? Since they did answer it, it's not going to produce a reasonable explanation in a conspiracy theorist's mind. It's just not. And even if you're not a conspiracy theorist, you're going to look at that and be like, well, you know, I still have questions that you're not answering to the fullest. So in my estimate, even though Otto, that was his name, right, with the pamphlet?
Yeah.
Even though he wasn't taken out, because I said that already, he wasn't taken out by the government, so clearly it's not a government cover-up because the government does what they can to cover shit up. Maybe they let him live on because there is no evidence left that supports anyone saying that it was a government cover-up other than the letter. And all the letter does is fuel, you know, fires, basically, you know, anybody who's still looking into this that says, well, you didn't answer all of my questions, and they're the CIA. Come on. What are they going to say? They're not going to say aliens exist. Nope. You know, but I don't believe the alien theory. I love the basilisk theory, but again, there's so many holes in that one too. You'd have to grow some legs and get on down to the bottom of that boat. I like the theory about there being some kind of a contagion in those barrels. You know, honestly, when you started with that theory, I was like, oh yeah, I saw Night of the Living Dead. Clearly, that's what happened.
Right. Yes. I mean, right away, that's my vote. I mean, I love the sea monster. The aliens, I almost was sold on it. The fact that some CIA agents into it and any creepy situation that can't be explained could be aliens, right? We don't know what they're capable of, but we also don't know what these experiments were creating. So we don't know what these gases were, and we don't know at what extent the government can make things just disappear. You can assume that they can do whatever they want. So sadly, I mean, I think that it's the government hiding their involvement with Unit 731, and I feel really bad for the crew because I don't believe that they even knew what they were partaking in.
Nope. And I feel like we should have been wearing our tinfoil hats for this episode because now I'm a little worried about what's been listening in on us.
Well, other podcasts have done it, just so you know. They seem to still be alive. So I think we're safe. They'll just be like, those silly girls. They don't know what they're talking about. Watch them.
The next time I'm on the phone, what's that clicking? That noise. But yeah, my favorite out of all of them clearly is the basilisk. But I think in trying to nail this down, it does seem like it was probably some fucked up government shit.
Yeah. So unfortunately, guys, not paranormal, even though there are paranormal theories out there. So
Yeah, right.
I did my part for the show, but
Love it.
I think this is a government cover-up. I think it's a conspiracy, sadly. If the ship existed at all, I think that's what happened.
Well, my birthday's coming up, so I want you to make sure that you get me a ghost pirate alien basilisk birthday cake, gluten-free.
Done. So if you have any thoughts or theories on this mystery, or you want to cast your vote for which one you think is right of one of the ones that I shared, or you can go rogue like I did and come up with a new one. I don't care. You can email us at creaturesofthenightparanormal@gmail.com, or you can direct message us or comment on any of our posts on any of our forms of social media, which are COTN_paranormal on Instagram or COTN paranormal on Facebook and Twitter. And though we don't have anything that will protect you from government lies,
Tinfoil hats coming soon.
coming soon. We're going to work on that. But right now, we do still have amazingly witchy spiritual products that can protect you from very shitty vibes and negative energies. So you can find those on the Spirit Emporium, which is on Etsy, and it's also on our website, creaturesofthenightparanormal.com. I know that's long, guys, but all you have to do is type it once, and your computer's going to save it, right? And then you just have to barely type it the next time, and it'll be there. So don't let that long name discourage you.
That's right. Wow. That was a very amazing story. And like still by the end of it, I'm pretty sure this is where Chris Carter got his idea to do this episode for the X-Files. Because you're like, there's like, 5 theories here. Okay, so maybe one of them was Wendy's. But, he probably took the story and was just like, all right, cool. I'm going to make my own ending to this. You know?
He could have. I mean, because if he's like us and he thinks ultimately the one that makes the most sense is the government conspiracy, he's like, I'm not going to put that on fucking TV. Or it's too dark to even talk about because it was horrible what happened to these people. So he avoided that topic and went a different route with it. They have to make it supernatural too. And ultimately, I'm afraid this one wasn't. But fuck, it could be. What do I know?
Oh, that's hilarious, but it's so true. We don't know. There's no answers here. There's, everything from mythological creatures to a virus, that could have been, handed out by, I don't know, agents, undercover agents, which is very scary. It's more of a scary theory than anything that's mythological because, at least with mythological beings and creatures, your imagination is allowed to roam. But then you pull in these aspects of war, which legitimately happened. And it is terrifying because you think, oh, fuck, what is the government up to? What were they up to back then? And what could they still be cooking up now?
And you can't stop them. You can't stop mythical creatures either that I know of. Usually there's a way, a silver bullet or something, garlic, those types of things. I don't really know how you protect yourself against a basilisk.
Hey, why don't you dial up the godfather of cryptozoology? I'm sure he knows.
I'm sure it's in the research, and I just didn't pay attention because, obviously they didn't figure it out on that ship.
Right?
Poor things. But what was it doing? Lingering underneath the ship, stirring up that methane gas, waiting until the Silver Star was there, and then it was flipped its tail and took off, and that's what lighted the explosion. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense that way. So I think it was the true monsters of the world, and it's all these horrible people that think human testing is okay.
Which it's obviously not. But, there are some strange occurrences which all happen just as, and that's it, just as, what is it? You're in the right place at the wrong time kind of a situation. So it could very well have just been an alien. They seized up and then they hit that methane gas all at the same time. And, maybe it wasn't a government cover up.
Yeah, we don't know because there's not a whole lot of documentation. There's just a whole lot of ideas and what fits the times of what was going on or what happens in that area, It's a very interesting concept. I love the story because I've never heard of this before other than it does seem, loosely the same story as the X-Files. But like I said, he went with a completely different direction. Of course he did. It's the X-Files. But I do like this story a lot. There's a lot of different ways that you guys could compare it. And also I'll be posting
a what do you think happened questionnaire. So you can post your votes on the Creatures of the Night Instagram page, COTN_paranormal, and let us know what you think.
That would be really fun to see how other people fall on it.
Yeah.
I think that was the coolest thing about it, is speculating. I actually went on a walk with my youngest and he didn't have anything to talk about. I asked him, what have you been doing? And of course, these days, none of us have been doing too much of anything. So he didn't have a whole lot to talk about. And I said, well, you want to hear my podcast story? And so I told the whole story to him. But at the end, I was like, what do you think? And he didn't even, I don't even think he was listening to me. So I think he spaced out like 5 minutes into me telling him a story. I'm not really sure. He's like, Mom and her crazy bullshit again.
He's like, I don't know. What was the first option? Okay, whatever that is. Do that.
But anyways, that's all that I got for you. And thank you guys for listening. And that's it.
Well, it was awesome. Thank you so much, Wendy.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
All right. Bye.
Bye.